Well, hello. It is Monday and the start of another week. And I wanted to just continue on this topic of suicide and give you some of my thoughts that have sort of come up from all the comments. And thank you for commenting and giving me your insights on I think it was a YouTube video I did around depression that went out over the weekend after the death of some famous people, Anthony Bourdain being one of them. And if you're feeling right now that you're trapped, that there's no way out, I want you to just know that there is. And I'm going to be giving you a group healing, an energy healing at the end of this, to just help us as a collective, as a species, to return to the heart and to return to trust, and just to know that if you are feeling trapped, that it doesn't mean that you can't find your way out. Just like a mouse in a maze, we're wired to take action that leads to solutions and positive outcomes. And one way that you can sort of look at this, and one that I know really, really well, 17 years ago, when I felt incredibly trapped in my life and in my business. And it was at a time where literally all my imaginal fears and the fears that my narcissistic ex-husband was giving me around that the only way that I left him or left the business was in a box or with nothing. The fear of that imagined fear really drove me to actually create that. And this is what imagination does. It induces real pain, that we're not enough, that there's no way out, that we're doomed, that we're never going to recover from a loss. And where I find so many people in the work that I do that get trapped in these patterns of abuse and patterns of addiction, patterns actually of entrapment. Because, how many times have you been so desperate? And this is what that feeling, or the body following the mind, that when we're feeling so trapped, we resort to acts of desperation that sometimes are taking our own life, or trying to commit suicide, to literally leave our bodies because we're afraid that the pain is going to kill us. And I always say there's time to run toward pain, there's time to run away from pain, and there are times to meet the pain. And it's only when we can actually, first of all, acknowledge that we're in pain, that we can then start to move toward a path of enlightenment. And, this is the imagined identification, I think. It's the illusion that I certainly felt when I was in that space of thinking that there's no way back, that I was at the point of no return, and the only choice I had was to exit out of my life. That was fueled by the fear of what will people think, and the shame and the guilt that came from how could I not have seen that life was giving me a challenge to meet this illusion of what I thought my life should be, and that I didn't know who I would be without the identity. Am I making sense? Do you get that when we're afraid to lose, we're wired to look at that there's going to be some kind of loss, especially when we feel like we can't control things. So, living in a space where perhaps you have nothing as far as physical resources, or like some of these very rich and famous people that have all the money, that have all the fame, that have lives that look great, that look like they have everything, it actually doesn't matter. Because if you're feeling trapped, you're trapped. And you start to experience your experience of the world, which is personal in its transformation of life. These challenges come to us because we can then look at the lies that we're trying to make true, and we can see the truth, right? We see the truth of ourselves that are living the lie of who we think we're supposed to be, rather than just being ourselves. And, people talk about this in life transformational industry of, just be you. And most of us don't know how to be ourselves because we are afraid of what we're going to lose if people see us for who we truly are. There's no choice in that but to change. So when we start examining our life, then you can start to see that love is bigger than ourselves. That this world says that you can't love yourself more. You have to make it bigger than all of us. You have to make it bigger than the fear that's moving you out of love. You know, we don't love others in this world. We're taught to look after ourselves first. And part of me, you know, this is the duality of this, and what I was talking to one of my friends about over the weekend is that pain is the solution. Pain is the solution to, you know, and this is where we avoid pain at every turn in whatever addiction we're in, to drugs, to the addiction to work too hard, to addiction to sex, addiction to money. We're so addicted to this in our attempt to run away from pain, that in the act of desperation, where our imagined idea of who we think we should be, and when we don't meet up to that we actually go into these acts of desperation where we destroy everything good about our lives on the way to letting go of the things that are no longer serving us. This is where we destroy who we are, that ultimately, and for some people, end in successful suicides. Just to end it, regardless of what the trap is, because we're feeling trapped. And real love has no becoming in it. You know, when we're kids and we wanted to be a fireman, or, you know, I always loved animals. I always knew I wanted to be with animals. And then when we start to give it shape and form of what we think, we imagine it needs to look like, we lose the joy of showing up in service to the animals, or to just play music for the sake of playing music. And if you did the 7-day challenge with me, you know that was one of the exercises that we did, was to, you know, do something for the enjoyment of doing it, regardless of how bad you are in the beginning. To practice because you want to get better, because it brings you some type of fulfillment. Not to look at, if I choose this thing, will I be a success and will I make money from it? And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have resources. I want resources. I want to be able to make money for what I'm good at, which is to be an expert in my field of root cause resolution to trauma and depression and anxiety, which are all side effects of acts of desperation, where we actually cut off knowing what we need. You know, I mean, how many times have you sort of eaten food when you're not hungry? You know, why do we do this? Because we're trying to fill a void or an emptiness, or console ourselves or comfort ourselves, because life maybe is not going the way that we want it to. You know, these are the little acts of desperation that compound on each other until it's a big act. Instead of saying, you know what, I'm not going to judge myself in this moment, because the negative actions are different to who am I? And the suffering comes, the entrapment comes when we're pretending to be something that we're not. You know, how much bigger can I get? How much more money can I get out of my music playing, or my book writing, or my services to others, whatever that looks like for you. There's constant judgment, and it's an effort to keep that in place, because you're actually going against your true nature. And this is where life brings us these challenges, where life says, look at this. You are so out of alignment with your soul's calling, with your true nature, with why you chose to do this in the first place. Happened to me in my business. I was creating art. I was creating furniture. I was creating beautiful home interiors and making trompe l'oeils and creating something out of nothing. And when I ended up not doing that and running another aspect of my business, because it had grown to this place where somebody had to do it, my constant fear of how am I going to pay my staff, and how am I going to pay the rent, and how many beds do I need to sell in order to just be able to breathe and sleep at night. Took the joy out of the thing that was a part or an extension of my creation that fulfilled me, right? Because it became about success and what would people think if I failed, that illusion to who we think we need to be rather than just being ourselves. And this is where, when we're unable to reconcile that identity of who we are with how we're showing up in the world, that we get trapped. So my question to you is, what am I trapped in? And I'd love you to comment below. Put your comments in the feed below. Where are you believing that you're trapped? That you're in a situation that you cannot get out of? Maybe that's a bad marriage. Maybe that's a partnership in business that's just not working because it's not living up to the illusion of what you thought it was going to be, which creates these acts of desperation that lead us to do crazy, stupid things, to literally destroy our life force energy and exhaust us. And where are you in this place where people think this is who I am? And you can't let it go because now you've got to figure out how to maintain that, to get more money or to get the approval of others, or to have the relationships that are living in that dream that is not you. This is where you see people that are victims of their own success, and I certainly was one of them. You know, where the imagined self owns them or owns you. So you sell your soul for success. You sell yourself for the relationships or the fame or the money or whatever it is to you. And we get to be trapped by our relationship to the position, to the job, to the fame, the fortune, the money, whatever it is. So I wanted to speak to this from a different perspective today, because so often what I see and what I experienced for myself was that I had no felt sense of who I was without the identity to be, you know, the leader in cabinetry or in fine home goods or whatever it is. And we have so little felt sense of who we are anymore, because it's too painful to find our way out of it. So we end up hating ourselves for the pain. And a lot of times I've seen this with people that are on the brink of considering to take their lives, or saying, you know what, this is it. Unless this starts to change, I'm out of here. I was one of them. And a lot of people say to me, but why can't I stop? Because I know the pain that it's causing other people, for me to keep constantly self-destructing and destroying everything good in the relationships with the people that love us. And here's the thing, most of the time in addiction, people can't stop. They just can't stop because they imagine the ending or the walking away being so unbearable, more unbearable than the pain. So they'd rather sit with the pain than think of the unbelievable as a way out. And, you know, here's the thing is, we create our own prisons. We become our own eternal jailers. We're not trapped in our lives. We're corrupted by a dream, an image, an illusion of what we think life should look like or how we should be, that we can't be ourselves. And then we base it on someone else's success or attraction to fulfillment. And that's the corruption, when we start to depend on how we're supposed to be based on how other people are living their lives, and we have no idea about what they're really going through. And that's part of the illusion, is 99% of the people on this planet, and again, I include myself in that because I'm part of the whole, I'm part of the group collective, is that we think that to live a life without pain is the way to go, instead of being holistic, to be sovereign, to belong to ourselves. It's the part of creation that requires the moments that life has to throw us challenges so that we can look at, what am I attached to? What is this lie that I'm trying to make true? What is the identity of the false self that I'm imagining that I need to be? And then we're challenged by life, and then we make life wrong, and we blame and we shame, and we get addicted to some way to avoid sitting with the pain. And perfection is part of that. Rather than seeing that the perfection of the divine God, the universe, is giving us all these gifts all the time in this pain. It's not struggle, but it's the intensity of saying, hey, listen, something's out of order here with your life. You need to look at that. And when we try to bypass pain, then it becomes this desperate act of blame and shame and regret and guilt and destruction of everything good and true that we came in here knowing we were. We were perfection when we chose to have bodies, because we're part of the divine. We're part of nature. We're part of the universe. So, instead of being imagined as who we think we need to be, we have to look at, where can I bring into acceptance and existence that part of the Bible that says, thy will be done. That's the awareness of pain. And then we can acknowledge where we are and see, where am I trapped in this dream, this illusion of grandeur or perfection or altruism or whatever it is. And be with pain, sit with the pain, instead of being trapped in the dream or the image. And here's the simplicity of everything that I do and what I talk about in the trust process and with my private clients, is that the solution is to use pain to break the story of all this unconscious patterning and programming and corruption of your true energetic divine blueprint. You came in being part of the divine. And the suffering is in the story of the unconscious identity that we hold ourselves to these unrealistic, ridiculous ideas of an imaginal world that doesn't come near being you. And that's the anxiety that comes up. In the moment, I'm feeling really anxious. Why are you anxious? Because you're already imagining into being that something's going to go wrong, or something has gone wrong, rather than saying that it's just an illusion of the dream. So instead of saying, oh, this shouldn't be happening, life is so unfair, the anxiety comes from that place of desperation. So when we can become aware of pain and really experience that there's a part of you who doesn't align with the self and the imagined ideas of who you think you're supposed to be, that causes the desperation and the splintering, right? The separation sickness I speak of, where we separate out from nature. Because that sense of the self, that imagined life, how we think our life should look, the dreams, and the fact that we can't keep the dream in place, actually the nightmare most of the time, because we know it's insane. And that it's a futile attempt to try and protect the sense of self that cannot be protected. Isn't that interesting? So suffering, what if suffering is just trying to make the self that knows not yourself? The part that is the essence of your true nature, that you belong to nature and you are of nature. And you're creating through the nature of yourself, not the dream. So make pain useful. It's interesting because, as soon as someone rich and famous commits suicide, it's so desperate to take your own life, that when somebody in the limelight, somebody that has a lot of media attention, does such a thing, it shatters our illusion of how we think life should be. Because if someone that's got everything, that's life is supposed to be so amazing, that has no money worries, that has everything that your dream thinks success should look like, which is not fulfillment, leaves us thinking, well, where does that leave me? If they were that desperate with everything and I have nothing, where do I sit with that? Which is why I've been spending quite a lot of time coming to you to just discuss and explore and get really curious in that compassionate space of listening to the true self. Because I really believe that if we're going to learn how to become humankind again, to be human beings, we have to start by identifying that there is an illusion, that you are in La La Land, and that to break this imaginal prison that you've created through an idea of who you think you should be is the entrapment. And this is why working with animals, working with nature is such an incredible teacher, because there's no trap. There's no trying to become something. It just is. It is the nature of all things. And we're the only ones that go against it. So, if we can sit with real pain, that probably ends up being painful because we're powerful creators. And the pain that we imagine will become a real pain unless we're able to use some of these tools and acknowledge that it's the pain. It's being able to see the pain as a gift. Depression is a gift. Anxiety is a gift. Betrayal is a gift. And to see the dark shadow states, because we are yin and yang, we're feminine and we're masculine, we're light and we're the dark, and we need the dark to show us where we've created this illusion, the fantasies, the insanities, the assigns, the assignations, the fairy tales, or the Brothers Grimm, nightmare, scary stuff that entraps us. So if we're willing to meet the pain, does it make sense that if you're inducing real pain of I'm not enough, or I'm never going to be able to recover from this thing, that we're going to carry on going on this Mobius strip and keep entrapping ourselves in our own pain pathways and patterns of addiction, that I'm never going to be enough, because you're trying to buy into the lie that your life should look a certain way rather than just living your life, being you. And when we can stop being afraid, literally go and have a look at my other YouTube video on scaring yourself sick. When you're able to see the wounds that you've curated as a child in order to grow you as a gift rather than a wrongness, to see it as a strongness, then we can connect to pain in a way that we start to process the unconscious instead of denying it and creating what we don't want, so that we can set ourselves up to be right, to prove, you see, I'm right, I'm doomed, oh whoa, there's no way out, look at what life is throwing me, it's so unfair, I'm not enough. So just a little segue into what I was sort of feeling called to offer to anyone that wants to join me in healing this group collective of rooting ourselves back into the earth and knowing that we're part of nature, and start working with nature rather than destroying the nature of yourself, and in doing so destroying all the natural resources that are available to you at all times. So I'm probably going to go for about 10-15 minutes depending on what comes up, but if you'd like to join me in holding this light, in honoring of Great Mother, of the divine, of the universe, and as you as part of the nature of all things that is perfect, just as you are, just get yourself into a comfortable position. You can be lying down or sitting down. Maybe close your eyes. Standing. However your body wants to be, just follow that impulse of that now. And I'm just asking for permissions for everyone that is ready and willing to receive this group healing now, to be open to receiving that. Just notice any sensation in your body, anything that you no longer need to leave now. Just asking for all Earth's body, Dever, your divine Dever, Earth, heavens, the 8 energy of June, July, to support all of us now in this sacred circle for our highest, greatest good. To join in with us, include our ancestral helping spirits. And just integrating that now. I'm using an integration of Parama body talk here now in matrices. So I'm just going to ask if that is complete and whole. And I'm getting a no. So we're just going to let this process for a while. And what I've done is I've just tapped into the energy of Earth, Great Central Sun, and where on the energetic blueprint of life I need to go and tap into. And I've got this beautiful initiation energy of the mandala, the sacred healing mandala, the solfeggio frequency to come up and integrate. And just muscle checking now. What's coming up is opposition or defense on the immune system. So that the immunity, the thymus, the heart chakra. And there's a belief coming up with this. So this is around being either over or under protective, but more, this seems to be more on the protective side. And the mantra or the statement that's coming up, the belief system that's coming up, is that it is better to receive. It is better to give than to receive. And just bringing in the emotional impact, the spiritual impact that this has on the immune system when it's not a give and a take. And these are the two things we're going to balance right now, with the left ventricle of the heart, which is all about receiving, and just heart opening. So being open to receiving, and that this idea of giving and receiving should be equal, that often leads to rebalancing of relationships, not just with ourselves and the me and the not me. So the anti-me that we've just spoken of before we moved into this healing. So we're just opening the left ventricle into that sacred chamber of the space of the heart, where actually the heart does pause, where it does take a moment to pause. So what we're balancing is defense and focusing on clearing and releasing this belief that it's better to give than it is to receive, which in the opposing force of this is I won't receive because I'm not worthy of giving. So we're working with the duality of opposing forces here, and what we were talking about earlier on entrapment. And there's something there's something coming through here around memory and distortion on filters, so subtle and normal senses of how we filter out and actually adapt, alter the truth. And I remember, you know, this happened to me when I was first starting out my practice, where I was afraid to ask for the money because I didn't feel like I was worthy yet. And when one of my clients asked, how much do I owe you? I said, oh, not too much. And he turned around and gave me the greatest gift ever of doubling what I said it was, and saying to me that this work was too important, that this work is needed, and that I needed to take the money. And I remember feeling so contractive about that, but what a beautiful space this client gave me to honor the value of my offerings and be willing to receive the value of that, which of course is subjective based on where you are. So I'm just going to bring that in, and we're linking this to an 8th chakra tentacle that actually needs to be severed of the peritoneum. So this is all the ancestral and familial and cultural programming and trauma that holds a lot of this acts of desperation from the false self in place that keeps us trapped in the illusion that we're separate or do not belong. So I'm going to just ask if there's anything more there. And we're not quite there. So I'm actually doing a subsession here on sight. And this is both subtle senses of sight. So seeing is believing, or visible proof. And we're getting the liver meridian come up here, you know, the general of the body, mind. And one of the spiritual aspects of what we talk about with the liver in Chinese medicine that really governs growth in our lives, you know, this is governed by the wood elements. It's about flexibility. It's about watering your wood, allowing the river to run through you. And we're actually also balancing life vision here of seeing life as it is, and actually what we were talking about before we started this clearing process of healing, of seeing the truth of who you are beyond reason and justification. So, and my mantra for this, I'm going to bring in nothing to hide and nothing to prove on the frequency resonance of integration there. And the physiology here, that we can step into the vision of what is possible for us because we know that we're part of the whole. And that the transition, there's certain times in our stage of growth where we need to pause, or we need to move, or we need to adjust ourselves. And being able to see that, receive the innate intelligence and the wisdom of the body through challenges or ways of being, you know, that we are attached to, or where we were identifying to really see things clearly for what they are, and the mirror in that, to see yourself as part of the whole, not this illusion to the false sense of self, which increases the desperation and the entrapment of, I cannot be me, I cannot receive myself, so who else will receive me? So I'm just going to close that package now. It seems to be running really, really well. So I'm just going to tap that in, wake up the heart to store the change, and tap on your head. If you're doing this, you can gently tap your head and your heart to change the circuitry and keep the learning in the heart, in the chamber of the heart, and that left ventricle. And now we're going to look at reciprocating dimensionalities. The body runs in reciprocals. So on the cross of the body, and there's some diaphragms in the body, and we're going to use the pelvic diaphragm, which is locking up in creation on the collective. We're going to link that to the diaphragmatic breath of being present and breathing in life, being able to absorb life, to receive life, and to literally be fully present to life. So we're going to just unlock the pelvic diaphragm, which is slightly locked up there. So some 4-4 box breathing, just breathing in life, allowing life to come in, bringing that flow and joy up into the heart chakra, the thymus, where we started. So we're just going to link those reciprocating dimensionalities, and we're just going to connect the nerves into those areas, and also bring this functional aspect of awareness, of really seeing what is available to us into these pairs, linking up into the nervous system, circulation of blood, nerves, and lymph to, from, and within, and linking the diaphragm. So we're actually going into the cranium diaphragmatic lock there, just to let that start to breathe, opening the pineal pituitary gland with every in-breath and out-breath. So we have this knock-on effect of assimilating, integrating, receiving, distributing throughout the whole body mind. And as I'm tapping this out, just be aware of your subtle and your normal senses, and how you can bring in more aspects of presence into your life. And just being present to this moment, to this healing, to this now, which is a very important aspect of this. And just knowing that the more present and connected we can be to this moment, the more peace and calm we feel, the more that we return to trust, and this impacts our whole body-mind complex. So just allowing for any integration there. We've got a little more downloading needing, and I encourage you to just deepen into diaphragmatic breath, craniosacral rhythm, the rhythm, the flow of the energy bodies, the river of life as you and through you, connecting you to the bodies of the rivers and the oceans, and purifying and cleansing them, which they so deeply need right now. And I've just got a sense that this is what we need to integrate now. So I'm just going to check in with you all and ask if this is complete. And I get a yes. Is there anything more to balance? There is. So just take a few moments to tap that in, receive it, assimilate it, return it to Mother Nature for recycling, replenishing, restoring, upgrading. And we'll just check what else needs to happen here. Again, I'm getting a vision of the ventral vagal part of the vagus nerve, tapping in, opening up the channels, allowing for accuracy in the information along the nervous system, the neural pathways, the meridian pathways, the chakras, and how we can come into rest and healing here, and also to work on heart opening again. So there's something else here. So okay, so what's coming up now is interesting. So this is an archetypal energy, again, of the collective, and it's a very strong Jupiter energy, which is, when you're looking at the psyche and the mind, this is where faith and hope and optimism comes in. And what I spoke of, that June energy and this 8 energy is really here to invite and help us and support us to really reset this fight, flight, freeze, this emergency mode that is creating so much desperation at the moment. Okay. So we're going to balance the reason of truth and trust with this archetype of Jupiter. Beautiful. So again, I'm just going to, you can imagine this with me, just feel your body, Deva, start to really move in an anti-clockwise relation with the DNA, LNA, RNA, with all the cellular repair, to replace old genetic code with new genetic code, old DNA, RNA, LNA with this new 5D genetic code of awakening, opening, receiving, and this beautiful renewed sense of trusting that brings in excitement and curiosity and optimism of the child part. And it feels like that is complete. So we're just going to tap that out. You can take some nice deep breaths in, trusting that you are exactly where you need to be. Nothing to hide, nothing to prove, no neediness, no desperation, just this open heart opening, this beautiful heart opening, body opening of receiving and appreciating that life is working through you as you are working for life. I'm just checking if there's anything more for today. And are we complete? Done. All right, so that's it. Let me know how that feels in your body, in your mind, if you feel any sense of peace, any sort of relaxation on the old identity, if there was maybe an upsurge of pain as intensity rather than seeing it as something you need to avoid, and that everything that you need, all the solutions that you have are here, and nature is this beautiful guiding force that is so available in this session today to really root down. Remember your roots. Remember you're so supported by the root system, just as the trees bring their wisdom to us to grow the young saplings into wise trees that are so giving in their medicine of changing up carbon dioxide into pure oxygen for us to be able to breathe, that there's no shortage of it, that everything is abundant and available to you. And all you have to do is open your arms and say, thank you. Thank you, thank you. I'm ready. I'm willing to receive. It is my time now. I am fulfilled, just in this presence moment of knowing and trusting that it is so. All right, sending you lots of love. Let me know your insights, comments, questions. Please share this with anyone that you know might be looking for this. And if you like this, if you'd like to have more of these sort of group field, morphogenetic field, collective healings like this, let me know, and I'll be happy to meet you there. All right, happy Monday. Lots of love. Bye.